Hello students, welcome to the channel. So you see so many things around you now. Just observe the things around you now. You can see so many things. Are they all living or non-living? Obviously, we can see some living things and some non-living things. How can we identify them as living and non-living? We have learned so many differences between living things and non-living things. Like living things can move, but non-living things cannot move. Living things can perform some activities, but non-living things cannot perform such activities. So we have seen so many differences. Why do we see such differences in living things and non-living things? The only reason for this is because living things are made up of cells, while non-living things are not made of cells. So today our topic is going to be the cell, the basic unit of life. We'll get to know why we call the cell the basic unit of life. So first we'll get into the definition of the cell. So cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life. In the definition itself, we can see structural. So it gives a structure to the organism. The cell is the basic unit which give the structure to the organism. So we have hands, legs, nose, eyes. These are structured. What gives them this structure? Because of the cells. Cells give the structure to every organism. It was first observed by a Dutch scientist named Anton von Leeuwenhoek. It was first observed by him, but he didn't give the name cells for those small units. He just called them animalcules. He saw some moving organisms, tiny units under the microscope in a drop of water, and he observed some blood cells in the foot of a frog. Before the invention of the microscope, cells were not known because cells are so tiny that it cannot be seen by a naked eye. There is a need of microscope to observe these cells. All the living organisms are made of cells. Every life starts from a single cell. A single cell divides, multiplies, and presently human beings or any animals which we can see are made up of billions and billions of cells. Later, in 1665, an English scientist named Robert Hooke, he just observed a cork. He observed a thin slice of cork under a microscope. It was a compound microscope. So he observed some tiny units under the microscopes. So then he understood that living things are made of small units. He observed something like this. Usually, when we see building a house, we see bricks like this, right? So, similarly, the living organisms are made of cells. We can compare these cells to bricks. So, a house is made up of bricks, while human beings or any living organisms are made of cells. So the word cell is derived from a Latin word cellula. The word cell is given from a Latin word cellula. So what does cellula mean? So cellula means small compartments. So obviously these look like small compartments. So that's why he named them cell. Usually the cells have three main and basic parts. Every cell consists of three basic parts. That is, first is the cell membrane, which is the outermost covering of the cell. So it is the outermost covering of the cell. Imagine this as a cell. So this outer covering is known as cell membrane. Cell membrane. And the second basic part you see in the cell is cytoplasm. So the cytoplasm is all inside the cell. cell is filled with this semi-fluid substance called cytoplasm. Then comes the nucleus. It's an oval or round structure which is present at the center of the cell. And this nucleus contains the genetic material required for basic living of organisms. So this cell membrane, which I came first with, so it protects the cell. It gives the shape to a cell. It controls the movement of materials in and out of the cell. So when a substance have to come inside the cell or want to go outside the cell, the plasma membrane, or it is called cell membrane, should allow their movement. So it doesn't allow unwanted things to get into the cell or the substance to go out of the cell. So it controls the movement of materials in and out of the cell. It provides protection to the internal components of the cell from injury. So then we have the cytoplasm, the nucleus, and other subunits inside the cell. So it protects, the cell membrane protects all these internal substances from being injured. Then what is the function of cytoplasm? So this semi-fluid substance inside the cell helps in distribution of molecules and nutrients within the cell. So obviously, for the functioning of the cell, this cytoplasm helps in distribution of molecules around the cells. So if a particle has to move from this region to this region, so this cytoplasm present inside the cell helps in the movement of the substances or nutrients from that region to this region. It helps in exchange of materials between different cell organelles. So apart from these three basic parts in the cell, there are many subunits present inside the cell, like mitochondria, endoplasmic reticulum, ribosomes, and many other subunits present in the cell which have their own functioning. There are various functions, so these are present. So for the movement of substances between the cell organelles, the cytoplasm helps in this exchange. Next, when it comes to the nucleus, it contains genetic material. So the nucleus controls all vital activities of the cell. So we understood that this nucleus is a central control nucleus. It is the control unit. It controls all vital activities of a cell. It is thus called the control center of a cell. It is the carrier of heredity from parents to their offspring. So some parts of you are similar to your parents, has been carried from your parents to you by this genetic material which is present inside the nucleus. So therefore it carries the heredity from your parents to the offsprings. The nucleus plays an important role in cell division, which is the division of a single cell to form two cells. So now we have learned about the three basic parts of the cell. So we will just have a recall of what all we have learned in this chapter. First, when it comes to cell, all living organisms are made up of cells. These cells cannot be seen by a naked eye. There is a requirement of a microscope through which we can observe cells. So before the discovery of microscope, cells were not known. The main definition of a cell is it is the basic structural and functional unit of life. It is structural because it gives the structure to the organism, and functional unit because it is because of the functioning of cells that we are able to perform our daily activities. Without the functioning of cells, obviously, we cannot work. The first person who observed the cells were a Dutch scientist named Anton von Leeuwenhoek. The word cell was not known by that time. So he used to call them animalcules. Later in the year 1665, an English scientist named Robert Hooke observed a thin slice of cork under a microscope, and he saw small compartment like structures like bricks we see in a house. So he observed this and he named them cells, which are the building blocks of a life. The word cell is derived from a Latin word cellula, which means small compartments. Every cell consists of three basic parts: the cell membrane, which is the outermost covering of the cell, protects the cell from being injured. Second function is it gives the structure to the cell. And then the third one is it controls the movement of substances in and out of the cell. The second basic is cytoplasm. It is a semi-fluid substance present inside the cell. It helps in the movement of substances within the cell and exchange of substances between the cell organelles. Third comes the nucleus. It is an oval structure present. It contains the genetic material. The main function is it carries the heredity from parents to their offspring. Second thing, it plays an important role in cell division. So that's all for this topic now. Thank you. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do subscribe to my channel and put an end to all your doubts.